Solution architect from Idealist Consulting. I am in Baltimore City. If you know Baltimore, I'm up by Old Memorial Stadium. If you don't know Baltimore, it's the northern part of the city. Let's see, if I had 3 hours free this week, I would sleep. It's the week I just got back from vacation, and you know what that's like the week you just got back from vacation. It's just nonstop. I work primarily and actually almost exclusively with nonprofits, and I used to be a nonprofit IT director.
You can take it away.
All right, I have not used Bevy before, so let's hope this slide share goes okay. I'm also going to be switching screens a few times because I have various environments that I want to show you. So can folks see my screen okay?
Mhm.
Yes, excellent. Okay. All right. There we go. So this is kind of the blurb that we put out for the session. Sales Experience Cloud is a digital experience product. Actually, my bandwidth is laggy. I'm going to turn off my camera for this. It's a digital experience product, but that really doesn't tell you a lot. That's, it's nice to say that, but it really tells you nothing about it. It's basically a website, but why should you care about that when you're doing Salesforce? It can do a lot of different things and it plugs directly into Salesforce. And we're going to be looking at how all of that works together. We're going to talk about basics. We're going to talk about things you can do with it. Experience Cloud is a massive topic, and we could be here for like 3 days talking about Experience Cloud. So, obviously, I'm not going to touch on everything. So, I'm going to look at it from a particular perspective, and there are some pieces I'll talk about, but I'll note that there are other pieces we're just not going to cover tonight. There's just too much to do. And we're going to look at some live examples, both on the front end and from the back end. So, this is kind of the short list of what we'll cover. I've got about 30 slides, but we're also going to look at some screenshots. We're going to look at some live demos of stuff. We'll have time for Q&A at the end. And I also was wondering if folks want to put in the chat, how many of you are brand new to Experience Cloud? You've never worked with it. Just kind of gauge what people's experience level is. All right, we got a couple of brand news in there. All right. Okay, so it looks like we have some folks that are either brand new, kind of know what it is, but haven't done work in it. Some built a portfolio. Okay, good. That gives us a little bit of a variety, and I think we'll be on track for what we're going to cover. All right, so what exactly is experience? Oh, sorry, did someone need to say something? Okay. So what exactly is Experience Cloud? As I mentioned a minute ago, short answer, it's a website. But the longer answer is it's a digital portal that connects directly into Salesforce. In other words, if you need people to connect to your Salesforce data, or you want them to be interacting with it, or you want them to be data in your Salesforce instance, you need to look at Experience Cloud. It's native to Salesforce. You actually install it out of setup on the back end. It pulls data direct out of it. You can have folks look at data. You can have them interact with data. You can show different things to them. You can also pull in other products. You can use, all the Salesforce stuff you're familiar with: flows, cases, data, records, layouts, profiles, Lightning Web Components, all that good stuff. And then my last bullet point: what's in a name? You may get confused sometimes when you see Community Cloud. It is the same thing. Salesforce renamed Experience Cloud from Community Cloud. Gosh, it's probably been about 2 years now. And the licenses are still called Customer Community. So don't be confused if you see people referring to Salesforce Community Cloud. That's still Experience Cloud. It's been renamed most places, but you'll still find it popping up here and there with the old name on it. It's also being folded into a larger piece now called Digital Experiences, and that's how you locate it on both the front user UI and the backend setup of Salesforce. So, you may not have realized it, but you've probably interacted with Experience Cloud, even if you think that you haven't. DeWalt Tools, DocuSign. If you sign up to do an IKEA kitchen measurement, you're going to get put into Experience Cloud. And pretty much every support site out there. If you've used OpenTable to reserve yourself a table and looked for a help article on their site, you've interacted with Experience Cloud. If you've gone to DocuSign or you're a DocuSign partner, you've interacted with Experience Cloud. Here's a screenshot from the IKEA kitchen installer. DeWalt, if you've gone for help on their tools, you have been to Experience Cloud. So chances are, Dell Computer Support. There are so many sites out there that are Experience Cloud, but you just didn't realize that you were interacting with Salesforce. So chances are you have already played with this, but played with it as a customer, as opposed to what we're going to be looking at tonight, which is a lot of the back end stuff. So, what can you do with Experience Cloud? What are the situations where you might want to have an Experience Cloud site? When should you start thinking about it? Portals, think sales, affiliates. Even if you're a nonprofit, I heard there were a couple nonprofit folks in here, and I work exclusively with nonprofits as well. Think about a large organization like Girl Scouts that has a lot of affiliates, or Keep America Beautiful, or the NAACP, large places like this where they've got affiliate branches. That's a partner portal and a perfect use case for it. Or federated organizations like that. Volunteer portals for those of us doing nonprofits, logging hours, getting training, accessing records, all of that can be done through Experience Cloud. Donor portals or other people, customer portals where they've purchased things from you, seeing a history of their purchases, or if you're a nonprofit, their donations and engagements, signing up for new things, looking at new products. Client portals. If you've got a healthcare business or something like that, you can have clients logging into portals through Experience Cloud, and you probably already have done this. Delta Dental, if you have that as your dental provider, they use Experience Cloud. Commerce, storefronts, and support for storefronts, government services. Baltimore 311 is partially hosted on Experience Cloud. And if you've used the mobile app, you've also been using Salesforce for it. So you may not have realized it, but that and Chicago's 311 services are both hosted on Experience Cloud. Really, any type of external engagement, peer to peer groups, organizing, anything like that, where you need people to be kind of right into your Salesforce org, whether they realize it or not, that's a great use case for Experience Cloud. And then I see a question from Barbara, wondering if anyone has used Experience Cloud with a merchant services. If so, any apps or connectors you've used that is cost friendly. That is a pretty large use case. Do you want to say a little bit more about merchant services and what you're looking for there?
Hi. Um, so I want to do B2B. So
Hmm.
instead of instead of using CPQ, I was going to use Experience Cloud and um, have people purchase things from the website. But like I know I can install Stripe or PayPal, but their rates are very high. So
Yep.
just wondering if anybody has used any apps or connectors where the cost of you know collecting credit cards might be lower than the traditional PayPal or Stripe or any other of those vendors out there that are well known.
Not offhand, because those costs are set by the platform outside of the control of usually the products they're coming through. So those tend to be for nonprofits, they can be negotiable and they'll give a different rate, but otherwise, those platform costs, unless you're very large, you usually can't get those down.
Mm-hmm.
Don't
Yeah.
know if that's
Okay.
particularly helpful.
No, that's I thought I'd just ask, some
That's okay.
I'm looking and if somebody has, already experienced this, then that's why I asked. I'm hoping that somebody would be, but it's not a normal use case. So it's okay. Thank you though.
No
Appreciate it.
problem. Although for experience class, B2B or B2C is a pretty common use case. You can do all sorts of storefront
Hmm.
stuff with it. Just in terms
Right.
of getting those platform fees down, I don't know
Yeah.
if there's a payment
Right.
solution where you could get that kind of break without either being nonprofit or very large. Does anyone
Right.
else have a suggestion there for Barbara? Okay, we'll see maybe at the end if someone's got something.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Oh, sure, no problem. All right, so working with Experience Cloud, we want to start looking at how we work with Experience Cloud. So we're going to be taking a live look in just a little bit, but first we're going to talk about the pieces. I don't want to just throw you straight into it and have you have no idea what I'm showing you on screen. So we're going to walk through a few of these pieces first. Out of the box versus custom. You can do a whole lot with Experience Cloud out of the box, and a lot of what I'm going to show you tonight is attainable with out of the box components with some tweaking. But you can also really ramp up Experience Cloud, its look, its feel, and its functionality with custom coding, custom design work, CSS, custom themes, and custom Lightning Web components. And you will see some of that tonight, although I've stayed more on the out of the box side for you all because I didn't want to make these things seem unattainable, particularly if you're just starting out with Experience Cloud. I wanted to show you a good range of things you can do out of the box. Um, but don't panic. Even if you can't do any of those custom things, you can still get pretty far with Experience Cloud and make beautiful sites with just out of the box or some of the other pieces we're going to talk about in just a second. That said, when you're deploying Experience Cloud, try and avoid just a plain vanilla out of the box deploy. You're going to want to at least do some design work, some tweaking of the functionality. It's sort of like you would never give someone just a plain spun up brand new Salesforce org and say have at it. There's going to be some customization that you want to do, and you want to make these sites attractive and you want to make them more functional for your customers. Looking at the chat now for just a second. I see. On digital experience, I agree. Experience Cloud, when you first start working with the builder, almost seems like things are backwards. That's the way it seemed to me when I started using it probably about 4 years ago. I was very confused when I first got into Builder and I knew how to do WordPress and I was like, none of this makes sense. But you can get there. App Exchange. When you're building in Experience Cloud, there's actually a ton of stuff out on the App Exchange for Experience Cloud. There's a lot of really great components out there. And a lot of them will function both inside your org and on Experience Cloud. The way that you drag, specific custom-made Lightning Web components onto Lightning Pages, you can do that same thing in Experience Cloud. But be aware when you're looking on App Exchange, not everything works for Community Cloud. And I'm going to pull up Community Cloud here, or excuse me, App Exchange really quick so we can look at what you would want to look at on the App Exchange for this. Give me a sec while I get logged into there. Oh, and the App Exchange is not logging me in. Let's hope it's not an evening where Salesforce is having App Exchange issues. They are not. All right. There's a whole ton of stuff available for Experience Cloud. Some things that you are used to in Salesforce are not going to be available on Experience Cloud, but it is always worth going to the App Exchange and seeing if someone has built it. For instance, that My Tasks component that everyone is used to seeing on their homepage in Salesforce, guess what? No such thing in Experience Cloud, but someone has built one and it's available on the App Exchange. There's things like favorites that are not available in Experience Cloud unless you custom code it. So be aware that everything available in Salesforce is not automatically available in Experience Cloud, but if you want to do something, always run over to the App Exchange and check first. How do you tell if something is going to work on your Experience Cloud site? I'm hovering over one now called Mopsy, View Your Tasks, and this is the My Task component replacement for Experience Cloud. Works great, looks just like the internal one. You see where it says Community Builder? That's the thing that you're looking for. It has a builder feature, or if you are clicked into a listing and you're looking at it, give it a second. App Exchange is slow tonight. You scroll down to the bottom, you see there's community builder components. That tells you this is going to work in your Experience Cloud site. You may need to do some further adjustment, like adding a security setting for it or something like that. But this tells you that yes, this component is drag and drop and will work great in Experience Cloud. And then Barbara notes that Salesforce Labs app has an app for surveys that can be used for Experience Cloud. Yes, they do. They have a great one. Salesforce Labs has quite a few things that will work in Experience Cloud. They're really nicely done. All right, back to our presentation here. So App Exchange, don't forget about that. If you're getting frustrated because you can't get something working in Experience Cloud, head on over there and look. The other thing you're going to see on the App Exchange is lightning bolt solutions. What the heck is a lightning bolt solution? These are entire prepackaged solutions. Think an entire Experience Cloud site picked up, packaged, and made available for you. Um, these are going to be things like if you think about if you work with EDUs or universities, enrollment solutions, entire enrollment solutions prepackaged. We've talked about commerce. There's some commerce solutions out there that are the lightning bolts that are a complete commerce solution prepackaged called a lightning bolt, and you'll see those on the App Exchange when you're looking at things. There are also some specialized sites that are packaged by Salesforce. Several of the industry clouds will come with their own pre-done Experience Cloud sites that you can then make further adjustments to. Health industry has some, financial services has some. The .edu has the applications and some of the enrollment pieces. If you've worked with Salesforce.org, NPSB, the grants management module has an entire packaged Experience Cloud site that you can make adjustments to within certain parameters, and that's already set up for you. So you just enable it, configure it, and you're good to go. You don't have to build the whole site from scratch. So there's various ways that you can work with Experience Cloud without having to know all of the custom things out there and be able to do this without being a dev or without being a coder. That said, if you're a dev or a coder, there's a ton more that you can do with Experience Cloud. This we are not going to go through all of this. Don't panic. This just kind of gives you an idea of the basic Experience Cloud stack and kind of how everything fits together. You've got your management pieces, the way you can do development, both clicks and with code, intelligence, otherwise known as analytics, search, things like that, and then also security and data privacy around that. When you're working in Experience Cloud, you're going to be concerned with various pieces of this. You're going to spend a lot of time in your experience builder, your content management. You're going to be looking at process automation and data management a lot. You're definitely going to be modifying the search. You might be doing something with analytics, depending on your use case, and you're definitely going to be looking at your security and data privacy. So you're going to hit pieces of all of these, but don't get too freaked out by this, big stack here. You're not necessarily going to be doing all of these for every site you do. All right, now we're going to get into some of the nitty gritty stuff, but we're not going to try not to make it too boring. But this is stuff you do actually have to know when you're working with Experience Cloud. Licenses. Nobody likes working with Salesforce licenses, but why should you care about this when you're doing Experience Cloud? And I will do a PDF of my slides, and I've got a great help article that really runs down the licenses nicely. The reason you care about licenses and why you must know this, even though it's a nitpicky sales thing, is that your license type dictates what your users can do in Experience Cloud. If you want your users to work with anything with opportunities, someone mentioned CPQ, you want anything to do with opportunities, you must have a partner license type. If you go and get Community Cloud or Community Cloud Plus, your users aren't touching opportunities. They're also not touching campaigns. If you want them to see dashboards, you must have at least Community Cloud Plus. So the article I've got linked is a great one that's a quick cheat sheet of can these people do this with the license type I have? There's also, different things about login type versus, the monthly allocation. We're not going to get into that tonight, but knowing the three main pieces, the Community Cloud Plus, and Partner Community is really important when you're working in Experience Cloud. And as Pavana notes, yes, you do need to know this for the cert. You need to know so many things about licenses for the cert and lots of little picky limits. They get a little crazy on the limits on the Experience Cloud cert, and knowing all of them, it's pretty humorous. For those of us working in nonprofits, there's also now Experience Cloud for nonprofits. I think it's called Experience Cloud license. I forget what the exact name is. It came out last year. It is the partner community license, a full blown, fully featured partner community license at a fraction of the price. It's almost the same price as Community Cloud Plus, and it makes all of that functionality for nonprofits really affordable because nonprofits tend to function around campaigns and opportunities. And those are the two things you must have a partner community license to access through Experience Cloud. And that was really unaffordable for a lot of nonprofits. So they've actually done a great pricing scheme and finally made that affordable. So that's a really nice change there. The other things you need to be aware of when you're first setting up your site and when you're thinking about how you're designing your site that are kind of more back end picky are your templates, because that's what you select when you make your site and they control what you can do with that site. They control the types of pages you may have available to you, some of the functionality, and other things that may appear in your site. The other thing is if you pick the wrong template and you've gotten halfway through building your site and you'd like to change, it will in fact wipe out your whole site if you change the template. So you want to really carefully consider your template when you start out. That said, the templates are pretty self-explanatory and there's a lot of documentation on them. I'm going to show you a screenshot in just a second. But you do want to think about the template style that you need and maybe fiddle around with a couple when you're first getting started on it before you really start building out your site, or you're really going to kind of mess yourself up if you need to switch halfway through. For themes, that's the look and feel of your site as its main purpose, but some of them come with different things, like they might come with two different header types or a hero with search components in the middle. And again, they'll give you a good explanation when you're picking them, but you want to think carefully about your theme. You can switch your theme without doing so much damage. You'll have to redo some of your design work, but it's not going to wipe out all your pages like switching a template would. Let's take a look at what those look like. So this is picking your template. This is a screenshot of what it looks like if you choose the customer service template. It tells you all about this. It gives you some screenshots from it, and you can kind of page through the different types of templates when you're choosing it. And definitely if you're new to Experience Cloud, get your reference articles and make sure you know what these templates do so that you don't pick the wrong one and have to rebuild your site halfway through. This is an example of picking a theme. These are much easier to change out, but they also kind of tell you, they give you screenshots of what some of the main pages will look like, and they tell you about it. Like this one has multiple theme layouts that it comes with. That might be important for you. It centers around a hero piece with some various types of buttons available. Maybe that's also important to you. Some of the other themes don't come with a hero component, although you can, use it in a different way with that. So look through the theme that you're picking and make sure that's the look and feel and the functionality you'd like for your site. Just things to consider as you're starting out with your site, particularly if you're new to Experience Cloud. Any questions so far? Folks want me to back up to anything we've covered? All right, I will keep going. Oops. At least it says go. These are what I've got on the slide, what I call bits and parts. These are the things you're typically going to work with in Experience Cloud. We're going to look at some examples of these as screenshots, and then we're also going to look at these live. Um, so Satija asks, can we copy the elements from one template to another? No. That's one of the frustrations of working in Experience Cloud. They've just now put some copy functionality within a page, but unless you've made a particular component like a Lightning Web component, you can't just copy your config from one page, even with the same template, onto another page. It gets a little frustrating sometimes. Some of the things you can't do in Experience Cloud, and you just kind of have to learn to work with it. It's a little bit different from working in Salesforce, but think about, if you think about it, there's also, when you're working in Lightning pages on the back end of Salesforce, you can't just copy out the config you've done on the contact Lightning page and go plop it over on Opportunity. You're going to have to reconfigure that component. Same thing is going to be true in Experience Cloud. All right, some of the more popular things you're going to be doing, record views and data. Of course, you've attached it to Salesforce. You want some data. It's either they're reading it, you're pulling them in, their activities as data, something's going on with Salesforce data. Otherwise, you wouldn't have chosen Experience Cloud. Cases, that's another popular use, whether they're support, whether it's someone asking for assistance, whether it's someone giving feedback. You can configure all sorts of different global actions and have that come in as a case straight off of Experience Cloud. Chatter, both on the record, but also peer to peer groups. That's a really heavy use case for Experience Cloud. And you've seen that if you've gone to a support site that uses Experience Cloud, they'll have knowledge and chatter as two of their main features. One of the sites I'm going to show in a bit is a chatter only site. And that's another common usage, just doing chatter as a peer to peer.
I have a
Salesforce,
question.
sorry, go ahead.
So the chatter on record, would the so you can show chatter on a record even if they don't have access to that record?
If they have access to the record. So
Okay.
you can configure the component to show up in the portal. And when you're looking at it from an internal perspective, you've got a drop down arrow that you can choose internal, your default internal audience, or everyone with access to this record. And that would allow the person in the portal to see the chatter you just put on that record. And you would be able to see them chattering back to you, of course.
Okay. Yeah, I'm working on this one implementation, and they want like some people out in the field to just participate in the chatter, but not have. I guess they don't write on the record, but the chatter is on the record. So I guess we have to give them. In this case, can you just pull the some data and just the chatter in the community, even if they don't have access to it?
If they don't have access to the data on the back end, you want them to be able to access it in Chatter. I'm not sure you could do that because they'd need at least read access to see that data.
Right.
With Lightning, with flows or with Lightning Web Components, you can elevate that privilege and configure it that way. I don't know if that would work right with Chatter though.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you.
No problem. You can give them, of course, different views with audiences and with layouts and restrict what they could do or could see on there, but that specific use case, I'm not sure. I suspect Lightning Web Components, though, might work. I just haven't tried using those with Chatter. Files and libraries, picking back up where we were, you don't necessarily have to go Salesforce knowledge, particularly if you're working with a small company or just yourself. Sometimes folks can't afford those Salesforce knowledge licenses, or it's just sort of like that bridge too far to try and configure. You can use files and libraries, and I'll show you some screenshots of that shortly. Perfectly fine in Experience Cloud. You just really need to be aware of the way they're permissioned and what folks can see. It's kind of all or nothing at the library level, so you need to carefully think out your library structure. Flows, of course, you can do a ton with flows in Experience Cloud, and they keep kind of expanding what you can do with flows, and a lot of that functionality has come to Experience Cloud. And there's fun components out on the App Exchange where you can put a flow in a modal and pop it up and do different things, and we'll look at a couple of screenshots of that as well. Lightning Web Components, of course, if you want to build those, you can have those in Experience Cloud. And a lot of the products, like the ones we are looking at, for instance, Mopsy, that view tasks component, that is a Lightning Web component that you drag onto a page and use in Experience Cloud. Salesforce CMS, we'll talk a little bit more about that if folks are interested. There's the free version, there's the super nice paid version. But even with the free version, you can do some kind of cool card displays and has some really nice styling features that you can really dig into and make it look really nice. Chatbots, another popular one for support sites, that comes native with Experience Cloud. Again, that's where it's dependent on your backend setup and what templates you have chosen. And then embedding other products. If you are using a product like Blackthorn Events or Form Assembly, probably a lot of folks here have tried out Form Assembly. If you've got the right licensing, you can embed that Form Assembly form directly in your Experience Cloud pages, and it will look like it's native to the Experience Cloud page instead of sending them externally to that form. So there's a lot of products out there that you can live embed that particular product and have it look like it's native to it. All right, let's check out what some of these look like. Records and data, pretty straightforward. You can present whatever you'd like. You can do your tabbed components. You can do paths. You do specific layouts for your community users so they just see what you want them to see. You can make it read only. You can make it edit. Same type of permissionings you do with your internal users. And then looking at Jana's comment here, Salesforce Labs Day discussed a lot about implementing flows into Experience Cloud. Yeah, they've got a lot of great use cases for it. Salesforce actually just put out a whole set of flows where you can pull the community users and the ability to freeze them, see the photos, see information about them straight onto the contact page. So you don't have to keep going back into setup. They have some really great stuff that they're doing with flows for Experience Cloud. Cases, I mentioned before, it's popular usage of Experience Cloud. Even if your main usage isn't support, putting cases in there and allowing folks to give you feedback is a popular usage of this. You don't have to have your plain vanilla out of the box global action that comes with Experience Cloud. You can make a customized global action and ask whatever questions you want, put defaults in there, and use cases in kind of a more interesting way for your Experience Cloud. Chatter. This is just some screenshots from a Chatter group, one of my test communities. I'll bring it up live shortly, and some of our Chatter pages in it will look a little bit different. If you've only seen Chatter inside of Salesforce, this will look similar to group Chatter, not necessarily record Chatter, but with a few extra features in there because you're managing these external folks as a group. So it's got things like announcements, it's got a different member management, and then you can also do report packs that will give you information on people's interaction with your Chatter groups in Experience Cloud. I mentioned knowledge. These are a couple screenshots, and we'll go live in this org shortly, just showing you topic page setup in one of the knowledge articles that we have in that demo community. It's looking at it from an admin view. So some of these check boxes, of course, would never be seen by the end user, but you can present all sorts of knowledge articles, support, facts, information for your volunteers, product information, anything you'd want that you could configure as articles, you can use Salesforce Knowledge with, and it integrates great with Experience Cloud. All right, chatter and knowledge demos. Hold on, let me get the right org up. Bear with me, I've got a ton of orgs open. There we go, and I might not pick the right one first try. Okay. This is just a demo site that we use to play around with and try out different things in Experience Cloud and just show people Experience Cloud. So in here, you can see this is a setup of knowledge with topics. We've got our articles here. We've also got any tagged topics that were in discussions available. You can easily make navigation for your folks. Let's say you've got a whole bunch of volunteers. One of our clients, Keep America Beautiful, they've got a whole bunch of information they need to present to their affiliates. So they can present it in Salesforce Knowledge, organized by topics with article views. And then folks can search and find what they need. Again, these boxes would not be visible to an end user. I'm in as an admin, so I'm going to see them. Let's look at another example of a chatter only community. This is the Nonprofit Technology Network, and they've deployed Experience Cloud in a peer to peer group only fashion. So they have a bunch of different groups on different topics. And I'm also have some manager rights in this community, so I'm not going to go into some of the groups because you'd see stuff you would not see as the public, and you'd see some groups you should not see as a public member. But they have their community networking through Experience Cloud and have it divided into different topics. And any one of these groups, you can go in and interact in a threaded manner as you would in many other applications and forums. So this provides a peer-to-peer forum community, and for N10, that's what they've chosen to focus their entire Experience Cloud deployment on. They've got, a few other pages here that are primarily facts and articles, but they are a peer-to-peer chatter centric community. So you can do just chatter with a community and it works great. Yep. Be a second while I now find my presentation again. I've got so many orgs open because I want to show you all examples of different things. Files and library, if knowledge is just too much for you, and for a lot of smaller companies or orgs or folks that can't afford the licenses, knowledge is too much to deploy. I don't know others' experience with it, but oftentimes the client will want knowledge, but then we get right down to it and we show them what it takes to maintain, and they're like, is there some other way we could do that? You can do it with files and library. So here's one of my clients where they've got different libraries. They've got things chunked up into different library topics. And when you go into those libraries, they're provisioned to be available for the community users. They've got all sorts of nice resources, nicely labeled, organized. You can click into them. It's a PDF. You can download it, you can print it, and it's nice and easily available to folks. If your library is primarily PDFs, then knowledge is not necessarily the way you want to go. You can integrate files and libraries. You also could use Salesforce Files Connect and integrate it with another system such as Office 365 or G Drive. That's a bit more of a complex setup. And if you're not in the IT department, you're going to need to work with the IT department to get that set up. But you can also do a nice transition there and have files presented in those systems coming into Experience Cloud when you click through into them. Flows, I mentioned flows, and Jana noted on it too. These are a couple of pop-up modal flows in a couple of different environments. In the one on the left, we want more contact details, and they can choose whether or not they want to change things, and then that can flow back into the Salesforce data, update their user account. You can also have it update their contact record. On the right hand side, we're poking someone who has not given us these pieces of information, so this flow is going to pop up until they give us these 3 pieces of information. And once they do, there's an automation in Salesforce that says, oh, those blanks have been filled in, don't present them with that pop-up anymore. You can also do login flows. You could do a flow straight on the page. You don't have to have it be in a modal. You can control information in other ways. And then, of course, backend automation. Once you've got the data coming in from the user via Experience Cloud, you can do whatever you want with it in a flow on the back end. Bots in CMS, we mentioned chatbot on the left. You've all seen these hanging out in the bottom right hand corner, usually, of a lot of web pages you go to. Experience Cloud has full chatbot functionality. You do need to set that up through Service Cloud. So you need some licensing there, and you also need experience with Service Cloud. So if you want to go the way of chatbots with Experience Cloud, make sure you know what you're doing on the Service Cloud side and on the setup side, because you don't want to deploy a bad bot or a malfunctioning bot that just errors out for folks. On the right-hand side is a card usage of CMS. This is using the freebie version that comes with every Salesforce org. You can still do a decent amount with that. And CMS, in this particular usage, it's taking a list view straight out of Salesforce, and that's been added as a type of content. And they're then styled as card views. So in this particular use case, these are donations, and the donor could just print receipt and get receipts for all their donations for the past year, which is kind of a cool use case of CMS. You also can have the higher priced, much more fully featured version of CMS where you can live pull content from, WordPress or whatever your website is. You could pull in blog content, you could pull in other channels of content, but even with the free basic version, you can still pull interesting things. And you can also do tricks with CMS where you want a piece of content to be updated on your Experience Cloud site, but you've got an internal user that needs to update it and they don't know anything about Experience Cloud. And you also don't want to give them management rights to go in and do that to Experience Cloud. So they could update it internally in CMS inside Salesforce, never have to know anything about Experience Cloud, and it will update dynamically in Experience Cloud, and you've just solved a management issue. So there's some fun things you can do there, even if you don't go with that big paid version.
I have a quick question.
Sure.
So you said on this screen, all of this, each of the card is a list view row.
Yeah, it's pulled from a list view.
And then, but you had to do some work on this side to then add the button to print receipt, or?
Yeah, I can. This actually comes in. Bhavna, are you a partner? Are you a Salesforce partner?
Yeah.
This is in the NPSP SDO.
Okay. All
So you
right.
can pull it in there and see what they did. But yeah, they did some card styling on there and they configured the list view in a particular way so it would only show certain things.
Okay. Super
It's a
cool.
fun use of it. CMS really heavily focuses on that card view and overlays and titles, and it can really pieces of content on your site.
Yeah.
I didn't have one to show, unfortunately, it's in a customer org that I can't show, um, where each city, they've got 4 different cities. And so they've got 4 different home pages presented to their external audience, depending on what city they're associated with. And an internal staff person goes in and updates that sort of blog style, updates it with current information and current pictures. And that just dynamically flows into Experience Cloud. And whatever city you're with that you're logging in, you get that new fresh blog page as your home page because it's got a big CMS element on the home page.
Cool.
Yeah, it's kind of nice to play with, and they've added more features to CMS because it just wasn't that great to use or that functional a couple years ago. But even the freebie version, they've been adding some stuff to it and kind of tighter knitting it with and making the whole thing called digital experiences now. So they're trying to get that more interwoven with Experience Cloud, and it looks like they're stacking in a few more things on the free version. It gives you nice styling choices.
Yeah. Thank you.
This is an example of a Lightning Web Component. On this particular page, the enter individual hours, view time submitted, and summary of hours are all custom-made Lightning Web Components. This is for a volunteer community where they are directly entering hours into the portal. That's all this portal does is it gives them information on the volunteer office and it lets the volunteers, of which they've got about 4,000, directly enter their time so that their staff internally is not dealing with trying to log all of these volunteer hours and trying to then compare that, for grants and do all that reporting. It's flowing straight in through the portal, and people are doing that via a nicely functional Lightning Web Component. Embedded products, I mentioned I don't have a form assembly shot, but I do have orgs where I was able to take screenshots. On the left is Box Kids. You can sign up for this site and go in and play with it if you want. It's from Reebok. That's Opinium, which is a learning management system on the left, and on the right is Blackthorn, which is an events management system, and that embeds seamlessly in Experience Cloud and looks like it's natively part of the page. Let me look in the chat here. Taylor, that is different than from Salesforce. This slide, this is using the underlying similar structure to volunteer for Salesforce. So it's using the campaigns and the volunteer job campaigns. But if you've worked with volunteers for Salesforce, not the prettiest sites or the most fun sites to work with. So this org has had, they had a previous consultant originally design these, and then we've since updated and modified the Lightning Web components to do more functionality. This piece I don't have in here, we have a group entering hours component that we just did some updates to. So a group volunteer leader could go in and enter hours for all of their volunteers. Like if they did a volunteer day with 30 people, they could go in and enter all those hours for those 30 people and dynamically add new volunteers and stuff like that. So it's using kind of some of the back end of volunteers for Salesforce, but it's been custom designed as a front end with Lightning Web components. All right, oops. Designing in Experience Cloud. Um, you do have to like designing when you're working in Experience Cloud. Yes, a lot of it is very technical, but if you don't like doing design work, this might not be the product for you to work in, because you just do need to know how to do decent design, or every site you do won't be the most attractive site. It takes some getting used to, but there's also help on Trailhead. So I've got some Trailheads here that are teach you about UX research basics and design basics, and you can also look at other people's experience clouds to get some idea of how to design things. Oh, good. Someone here says they love designing. Excellent. I think it's really fun to just like kind of work with the elements and try and figure out what works best from the client. And it's always lovely when you present a design and they're like, yes, the first try. They're like, yep, that's the design we want. And that's just a really great feeling when you've designed exactly what they want and you've got the look that they want. Um, Good variety possible with out of the box components. Again, you can do custom CSS. You can design custom themes. You don't have to use the ones that came with Experience Cloud. This does require developer knowledge, but if you're at a place that has developers on your team, you can probably pull them in and get some of that done. Actually, let me back up to, no, I don't have a screenshot of it yet, but you'll see it in just a minute. There's also what are called flexi pages now. They're a couple years old in Experience Cloud. It used to be you'd kind of be stuck very rigidly in the way the pages were in Experience Cloud, and it wasn't very fun. But they've introduced flexi pages a couple years ago where you just pretty much start with a blank page and you start slapping your sections on there and dividing them up and doing what you want with it, which is a really nice addition. It makes it much more pleasant to design in instead of being stuck in the rigid, way they had their pages done out of the box. I've got a linked article on customizing shared areas where you can make different headers and create, without even knowing how to do custom work, you can create different themes for the same site. That's a really excellent article for folks that are trying to figure out how to present the same Experience Cloud site, but to different audiences with different branding sets and different header looks without making a whole nother Experience Cloud site. A lot of folks make the mistake of not realizing you can do that, and then you end up with like 7 Experience Cloud sites because you didn't realize it could just be one. We'll talk about audiences shortly. And then I've got some design trailheads in there too. All right, let's look at some homepage designs. Some of these are my clients, some of these are coworker clients, and I tried to pick ones that I am allowed to show. So give me a sec while I find those. And they're in like a corny Apple slideshow. So sorry about the dorky music. Hang on, let me try and get it. Hold on, I gotta share a different screen. Give me a sec. Let me drag this over. I will kill the music as soon as it comes up. All right, hopefully this will play and not balk at me. Nope, it's gonna balk. Give me a sec. It's stuck on one. Some of the areas I've blanked out because they contain client information. Some of these are demo orgs. Some of these are live. And this is a more stripped down one. You can also customize login pages and make things really look like the individual client's design. It doesn't have to be like a boring white page. All right, that gives you a little bit of an idea, and those were all almost exclusively out of the box designs. I wanted to show you what you can do with just not knowing how to do custom CSS at all. They all are going to have sort of that look and feel of Experience Cloud, but you can still get something that's really attractive to your client without knowing how to do custom HTML, custom CSS, all of that stuff. Um, can you share those trailhead links in the chat? Yes, I will at the end. I'll also have a PDF of my slides done so you can get the links off there, but I will put them in the chat at the end. All right. And we're getting towards the end here. Building in Experience Cloud. Digital experiences. It's called digital experiences on the back end, but now it's digital experiences on the front end too. You used to not be able to access the Experience Cloud site and Builder and Workspace that we're going to look at in a minute without going into setup. You can do it now. You just look for digital experiences home on the front end and you can go straight into Workspaces and Builder. So you don't always have to jump into setup. Domains and URLs. Your Experience Cloud domain, when you set your first one up, pay attention because you can't change that. Once it's set up, you are stuck with it. So make sure it's what you want, and your clients or your external folks, your volunteers, whoever, they're going to see that name. So make sure that you get the name that you want, and it's not like something really long and hard to do, or like my test site or something like that. You are then stuck with that name. And the URLs matter as well. You'll see on the back end when you're looking at URLs, you'll have my domain. You may have a site.com site, which we'll talk about in a second, and then you'll have an Experience Cloud domain. You can have multiple domains back there. Make sure you know which one is which, and they're pretty clearly labeled. All right, site.com versus Experience Cloud site. What's the difference? Someone mentioned volunteer for Salesforce. Those are site.com sites. Site.com has their place. They're primarily Visualforce based sites with Apex coding behind them. They might be Aura based or Aura bundles. If you just need to hang out a few pages and you don't need the full blown Experience Cloud functionality, site.coms are perfectly fine to use. But in general, they need Apex Visualforce custom coding going in there. There's not really like an out of the box site.com site you could deploy versus Experience Cloud sites. And I should note that what we're looking at tonight is Lightning Experience Cloud sites. That leads to other kinds of Experience Cloud sites. There are two other major kinds: Visualforce Plus tabs. It's just what it says on the tin. You need Visualforce knowledge for that, and Apex. You can deploy an entire site that's done in Visualforce and Apex with some Experience Cloud functionality, including auto registration and all those features. And that is a form of Experience Cloud called Visualforce Plus tabs. We're not going to cover that tonight. There's also a newer version called Lightning Web Runtime Experience Cloud. That is, again, heavy duty coding. It's Salesforce DX, Apex, custom CSS, Node.js, APIs. If you're a developer, Lightning Web Runtime Experience Cloud may be for you. That you can build beautiful sites, microsites, all sorts of lovely things. It is custom. There's not, there's a basic template when you're looking and choosing your template in Experience Cloud. You'll see that there is a Lightning Web Runtime sort of basic shell template. And if you want to go that direction and you've got those code skills, experiment with it, see what you can build in there. The two tools we're going to see in a minute are Experience Workspaces and Experience Builder. Those are what you're primarily going to be working in when you're working with Experience Cloud. You're also going to need to configure profiles, of course, because every one of your customers logging in needs a profile. You can make multiple ones doing different things for the same Experience Cloud site. You want to pay attention to layouts. You don't want your community users to see the same layout your internal users do. It's probably not the right information. So you make those layouts and deploy to those profiles just like you would anything else. And there's also a particular type of sharing called sharing sets that are specific to digital experiences in Experience Cloud. And that's where you say things like, on my contact, my primary affiliation dictates what records I can see for the account object or the opportunities object. It is specific to Experience Cloud. It functions similar to sharing rules, but not quite. You'll see when you play around with that in Trailheads what it can do. And lastly, audiences, which we haven't really touched on yet, but they're a hugely important part of Experience Cloud. That instance I mentioned a few minutes ago, where if you don't know what you're doing with it and don't realize how much you can customize one site for multiple people, you might end up building 7 or 8 experience clouds, not realizing it could have just been the same site. And that's where audiences come in. You can control what people see based on something about their user, their profile, their contact, their account. If you can jump to it through the user object, you can make that a quality that controls what they see in Experience Cloud. So one of the sites I'll show you in a minute, you get a completely different homepage based on who you are, what profile you are, or a checkbox on your contact object. We'll show you a completely different look, and you will not even realize it's the same site. All right, demo time. Any questions before I start pulling up orgs? All right, okay, let's look at our going to do this one first. So this is digital experiences on the front end that I just mentioned. You can pull them up here, or you can go dig around on the background. Yeah, I just kicked myself out of setup. I meant to search here. And you can get into your sites this way. You can also get to them off of your waffle menu. They're going to often have these little yellow icons unless you've customized that. If I'm looking at this demo org here, I've got a ton of Experience Cloud sites running in here. You can have a lot. That's one of the things you'll need to know for the cert is how many Experience Clouds can you have, how many audiences can you have, lots of different limits. If you're going to study for the Experience Cloud cert, you got to know all your limits. I think it's either 100 or 150. Haven't taken the cert. I've now forgotten how many sites you can have. All right, I am going to jump into Workspaces first and show you that. Yeah, it's 100 sites. All right, Workspaces, you can get to Builder from Workspaces. These are the things that enable you to build things in Experience Cloud. We're not going to do a full tour. I'm just going to kind of give you a flavor of what this is. You've got moderation. That's not something we talked about yet, but that site that I had up that's all chat, you can do gamification and moderation. So you can give people reputation points. You can give people awards, different levels. Think of Trailhead, where you can reach all the way up to Ranger. Those are levels. And you can do that with moderation and gamification. Um, Primarily under gamification, moderation lets you, for the chatter groups, say at what point does someone's post get flagged, or at what point does a post get removed or not allowed, or something like that. And gamification allows you to do all of that reputation, and somebody's now reached ranger level, all those kind of things, award specialized badges, all of those features are in there. Dashboards gives you the community management pack that you can install off the App Exchange, gives you a full set of community reports about the usage of your community, and how much people are interacting with it. Do you have top posts? How much are people logging in? What is your login rate for the last week? You can get all of that out of a free community management pack off of App Exchange. We're going to go into administration real quick. These are key pieces that you'll need to know how to do. So when you're learning to work with Experience Cloud, make sure you go through all of these pieces carefully. Members, which profiles can be members of your community. Fun things like the minute you put a profile in here and click save, it's going to email everyone a welcome. So make sure you know what you're doing in here and that you're ready to put someone in as a member. Login and registration controls what your logo is, controls the colors, controls the welcome email that you may want to send. Underneath emails over here, you can customize that. What's the email address things send out at? All of that is sort of basic settings that are controlled in here. The main piece of the work you're going to be doing in Experience Cloud is Builder. If you've been in Builder but didn't know Experience Cloud well, it was probably really confusing because it sort of looks like Lightning Web Pages, but it kind of doesn't. And it can be confusing to work with. Pages, any page available in your site, whether you've configured it or not, is going to appear here. You can make new pages, but this selection is what's going to come with the combination of your template and your theme. New components you can add, oops, would be here. Custom components coming from installed packages are going to be down at the bottom. These you drag and drop onto the page exactly like you do in Lightning Web Pages. Going back over to our pages, you can have variations. So you can have different variations of your home page. Excuse me, let me get that out of the way. I could have, 5 different variations here. Let me pull an org real quick. This org I'm going to show you. Ooh, just logged me out. Give me a sec. The reason I'm showing it to you is it has a lot of audiences and home pages. And I want you all to see what that looks like. While that's loading, we'll finish our quick tour here. You can adjust your themes. You can have different branding sets, different themes, control your colors, all different things about that. Page structure, what do you want that to look like? And then you've got security settings and navigation. You can have a ton of different menus that are displayed to different people controlled by audiences. Um, no, you can have more page variations than that, Barbara. I'll show you one in just a second. I may have slurred when I said it, and just I meant to say that you can have many page variations, and that's why I'm pulling this one up. So this is the U.S. Soccer Foundation. They've got so far all of these different pages. Some of them are live and some of them are not. Obviously, there's 2 different versions going on here. Each one of these pages has different things that different people see based on an audience. So let's look at what their audience configuration looks like. You can see all the different page variations here. You can say which order you want these populated and whether or not they have an audience attached to them. For this org, they have a lot of very specific requirements of what people should see. Can they order equipment? Do they need a background check? Do they not need a background check? Are they with this program or that program? You can have 1,500 audiences. So this is actually pretty minor, even though it looks complex. It's probably about 20 audiences here. You may never have a site that has 20 audiences. You might have a site that has 120 audiences. Just be aware of what you can control with them. For these folks, it's profile. For these folks, it's a combination of things. And you can configure if you can pull, and it works just like any other logic. If I can pull something going through user or the record or permission, I can keep jumping through. I can jump through user. I can then jump through contact, just like the logic you see in flows and process builder. This works the same way. There's a lot of different specific configuration you can do with an audience and present completely different looks and feels to people. Yes, on audiences, you can go to any page variation and just click on the audiences here if you want to manage all of your audiences. If you're managing for a particular component, you could click on that component because you could also assign components to audiences. This is a lightning button that only appears to people that need to do a background check for this program. You can see up here, I've got it controlled by an audience. A teacher logging in for this program is going to get something that looks completely different than someone who's doing the after school program. It's a very different look. You can preview what that looks like. You can also say whether or not you want to see that when you're designing. How does that look on mobile? Most of these folks are going to be mobile. So I actually designed this to look nice on mobile and have all of their things up front for mobile. We want a simple, straightforward experience for these folks. They don't need a lot of other stuff to go to, just their main buttons. And you can switch that back and forth. So if you're new to Experience Cloud, spend a lot of time playing in Builder because it can be a little bit confusing as the one person, I forget who it was, mentioned when they first started out. It was very confusing. It is, and I was very confused when I first started in this. Um, the worst thing you'll do is you'll click on menus and realize you can't just go to them. So you'll be sitting here trying to click on menu things and they don't go anywhere. That's because you need to do navigation separately. So there's things you've got to get used to in building pages that you'll get used to as you go. Just spend some time getting used to Builder. All right, let me pull up. We're also getting close to time, so I think that's everything I'm going to show you about these here. Let me pull back up my slides. This was just kind of a quick overview of all different things that go into or that you need to start thinking about or that you might experience when you're working with Experience Cloud. I did some resources here for you. LearnExperienceCloud.com. This is a newer site by Salesforce and it's wonderful. If you have not gone to LearnExperienceCloud.com before, please go there and have fun. The Experience Cloud core team does this site. They have a lot of great stuff here. They've got a lot of resources. They've got a lot of things broken down by product area. That article I talked about how you personalized shared areas are here. If you want to learn about content and CMS, this is all Experience Cloud only, and it's done in Experience Cloud as well. Good trail mix that I've linked off of here. Weirdly enough, there's not like anything beyond a basic Learn Experience Cloud trail mix, and the one for the cert covers a lot of different things. So I've linked one here that might also be good if you're just learning things and you just want to learn. And it's got some cert stuff in there, but it's more geared towards learning. And then some trailhead groups. The one for nonprofits, there's a specific one for that. The regular one, talking about topics for securing Experience Cloud. And then if you're with a partner, a consulting partner, there's an Experience Cloud partners group in the partner community. If you think you'll love Experience Cloud or you've already started working in it and you want to get your cert, there's Consultant Trail. It's you find it on on Trailhead. You just go under the certifications. You click on that. It's easy stuff, but it's got several UX designer bits. I think they're probably going to start changing the cert when they update it next, and it's going to have a chunk of design bits in it because it doesn't really have that right now. But I've noticed they've changed the trail to include them. That said, the UX designer cert's a really good companion cert. If you want to work a lot in Experience Cloud, you must complete your admin cert first in order to get the Experience Cloud cert because you're working with pieces of Salesforce. So it's necessary to understand that before you do Experience Cloud. Focus on Force is fairly accurate, but you also need to understand how Experience Cloud works before you try and take that cert. And again, there's a ton of little tiny picky questions. Anyone here that has the cert can attest. There's like all these crazy questions on limits and licensing and obscure features you'll never use, like some of the other certs. It's going to be nitty gritty on what's your high volume customer limit on an Experience Cloud site. It'll be those kind of questions. That's it.
Thank you, Dar. It was really great. I'll turn the cameras back on. I have a quick question. If there is anything specific to consider when migrating from another website or another community?
Do you mean deploying or do you mean, tell me a little bit more about the use case?
Yeah, so we are migrating. They have currently built everything on Drupal and they have about 40,000 members. It's a nonprofit organization. And so we are kind of rebuilding a lot of the experiences as flow. So we're doing a lot of prototyping right now and just design flow in general, understanding how it's going to look like, which experiences to move, what doesn't. The website looks very crazy, very busy right now. Also understanding what can we do out of the box is phase one and what do we need to build custom on top of that. So just kind of thinking through all the steps, what would your recommendation be, where to start with, and then when thinking about migrating the users that were already existing, they already have the website, the passwords, the login, and now recreating them basically on Salesforce as users. Have you worked through this type of use cases and what is the best practice?
Yes, I have. Let's start with the migrating users. Yes, the one I showed you with the volunteer hours custom components, that was actually a recent migration from an NGOC. It was a Salesforce to Salesforce migration. It's completely different Salesforce org. Yes, you can load in and mass enable users. You can't set their passwords.
Hmm.
They're going to have to learn a new password because remember for Experience Cloud, and that's actually something I didn't mention but might be of interest to folks. You don't make an Experience Cloud user like you do other users. You must enable a contact. So you must do it from the contact, which is an unusual way of making users. Um, and it's sort of like other Salesforce accounts. You can't set a password, so there isn't a way to say I want these passwords. But you can definitely like load in those users and their email addresses, so their login would be the same. Um,
Hmm.
on migrating the different experiences, I would do a lot of expectation settings and make sure they don't, are they really married to it must look exactly and function exactly as the Drupal website? Because that's a mistake.
Yes, so we're pushing them away from it. It's kind of still work in progress. I think we get in there. And also they have a lot of different functionalities and different audiences. So we're trying to, again, as you said, set the expectations. If you want to launch this year, we have to limit certain things so that we don't take 2 years to replicate everything. And plus the UX, we do have a UX designer part-time right now who is really an UI designer who's helping us to really streamline the look and feel of things. So I think we're gonna review that, but still trying to, yeah, kind of map things back and forth, right? Like what they have right now, how was working, and what makes sense within Salesforce.
Yeah, because a lot of what times what you'll find is people like can't let go of that functionality, but they've never considered whether that's actually the functionality they need. It's like any other type of migration. Like that's just what they're used to, so they haven't stopped to think about any other way to do it or whether or not that's just what they're used to, not necessarily whether it's a good idea to bring it over. Um, and so trying to the U.S. Soccer Foundation one that I showed, some of those web pages are a little bit older because they were trying to replicate exactly a previous site, and they now that they're having me do new pages, like the last one I showed with teachers, it's much simpler because they've realized they could just let go of some of those other things because nobody was
Mhm.
really using them to begin with.
Yeah.
Um, and so, as long as you're doing that and kind of setting expectations, that's like it's not necessarily a one for one. Sure, you can replicate a lot of the things, but some of them might be a little bit different, or it's okay to redesign this or let go of those things. Without knowing more specifics, I don't know exactly like what might not be able to be replicated. But
Hmm.
there's probably going to be some
Understood.
stuff that just won't function the same,
Hmm.
no matter how much coding you throw at it. That just is a difference between the two,
Yeah.
and make sure they're comfortable with accepting that like it might function slightly different or there's a different way of doing that, or in some cases there just like might not be a way to do that.
Hmm.
It's even it would be true even if you're moving from Drupal to WordPress. There's going to be a couple things that just don't function the same no matter what you do. They're different systems.
Right, exactly. And another quick question. Sorry, everybody, I'll jump in right away again. So, have you or anybody else had any experience? Oh, and Michelle joined us. Hi, Michelle.
Hey.
Um, has experience with some kind of a Calendly or scheduling tool, something like Calendly. So, what we're trying to do is incorporate, like, the main call to action is to get people to sign up for one-on-ones with the staff.
Hmm.
So when you come in and you set up your username and password, right away we want to kind of drive that scheduling piece and to say, hey,
Hmm.
schedule your one-on-one right there, right now. So not separate button, no link. And we're trying to incorporate Calendly into it. But curious if anyone used any other tools that is probably more native to Salesforce or easier to build without custom development.
There's a lot of providers that have community components now for event scheduling. Booker 25, Blackthorn is more than what you're looking for. I
We're
can't
looking at
remember.
Blackthorn too because we're also looking for the
Blackthorn's
event
lovely.
stuff. Okay.
It's a really good American Academy. Actually, American Academy is using Pardot. I think they're also using Blackthorn now. We've got two other clients that have started using it that are fairly large. They really like it. And
Okay.
from what we've seen, the community components are really nicely done.
Mm-hmm.
But there's several event or booking type apps that do have community components, and that's where you can check them on the App Exchange for that community builder
Mm-hmm.
piece. Some of them don't have anything, but always definitely test them because I found a couple where they're like, "Oh, we have a community component," and I try and test it. I'm like, Sorta. Like,
Yeah, I
I
came
suppose you
across
could call
one
that a
like that.
community.
That's why I'm like so careful now because one said exactly the same. It's like we have a component, and I went to download it. And it's like,
Yeah, it's
what
like,
is happening? Yeah. But
yeah,
yeah,
they're
Blackthorn, thank you. That is good to know. We're looking at Blackthorn for events, and I just learned at the conference that Blackthorn can also do like it's basically scheduling. It's same as event, but you just say on this day for this block. So it's kind of similar.
yeah, and their community components are nice. They're nicely done. They're not like did them in 5 minutes kind of thing. They're very nicely done community components.
Okay.
'Cause you'll
I'll
find the
let,
quality can really vary.
yeah, I'll let
That's
anybody else. I know a lot of people have to drop, so I'll let anybody else ask the questions.
If Jenna has not dropped, is this a manageable cert after admin? Yes. If you definitely need to play with Experience Cloud first. Don't go in blind to an Experience Cloud cert, having just like looked at Focus on Force, you'll fail it. Because some of the questions you just like, it's like trying to go into the advanced admin cert without really having done those functions. You'll fail it. But if you've played around a good chunk with Experience Cloud or made a couple of sites, yeah, it's totally manageable cert. Let's see, what else have we got here? Let's see. All right, I think that was it. Did I miss anyone's questions? Someone had asked for the links, but is that person who asked for the links still here? Trailhead links, it was Jana, and Jana had to go. Okay, let me
Just
do it.
the slides, right, with the all attendees, Alicia?
Yeah, let me go ahead and do a PDF of my slides here. And it
Yeah,
should have the
Dar,
links
you
in.
can send it to Bhavna, right? And we can just send a follow-up email to everyone and include the slides there.
Yep, and the recording should be fine. The clients I've shown, the homepage ones that I showed, they're all acknowledged clients, so there's